I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What is going on, everybody? Welcome into The Locker Room. What a massive week it has been for The Locker Room. What a massive day it has been for me. We'll get into all that in just a minute. But before we can get started, before I can even speak to the people, you got to follow us on our social media. Stay up to date with everything we have going on. Interact with us on our social media. Grow together. So at your earliest convenience, go over to the Locker Room Podcast 615 on Instagram, the Locker Room host Jacob on Facebook, TLR with Jacob on Twitter, and on TikTok, the Locker Room 22. This episode is brought to you by FNX Fitness. Listen, if you've heard me say it once, you'll hear me say it twice, and every week that we have this podcast, I used FNX Fitness to not only help me drop 20 pounds in the gym, but look good and feel good and recover well after doing it. So use FNX products today. Use your promo code TLRHOST for 15% off your order. And remember, it is made here in the beautiful USA. So today was a good day. There's a ton of reasons why. We've had an incredible weekend here at the Locker Room, a surreal weekend at the Locker Room, I should say. But today, I've got to start off my podcast by thanking my amazing wife. So I get home. It had been a long day. Been ready to record the podcast. I am just, you all don't understand. This is my therapy, right? I love getting to sit here and babble on a mic and have people that listen to it. It's amazing to me. I love it. This is my relaxation. This is my joy. They tried to make me go to rehab, and this is the only way I go, right? So I love coming here on the podcast. So it's one of those days I'm having my third cup of coffee, and it's that afternoon coffee, right? You already know it's been a long day when you're having that afternoon coffee. And my wife comes out to the car with a blindfold. I was like, oh, geez, what's going on? She's like, hey, I need you to put on this shirt. And I was like, all right, I'll put on this shirt. So she blindfolds me, makes me put on a shirt. So I don't know what's going on. I figure, hey, listen, gentlemen, you know what it's like having a wife. I figured, all right, this is I'm thinking in my head that it's going to be, a treat. I'm going to get a treat. She's going to bake me my favorite cookies. You know what I mean? You smell what I'm stepping in, right? All right, anyways. I'm sure my wife's going to love listening to this later. So I'm blindfolded. I'm entering my house with a mysterious shirt on. And lo and behold, long story short, ever since I was a kid, I'd always wanted a golden retriever. And our 1-year anniversary is coming up in July. And so apparently my present was ready early. So I came home to an 8-week-old, adorable little golden retriever, something I dreamed about literally since I was a young boy. So shout out to my wife, shout out to my new puppy. It does not have a name yet. You know, we're talking about naming it some of the greatest of all time. So you have, LeBron, you have Captain America, some of those. But I don't know. To be honest, we have not thought about a name yet. I've just enjoyed the little floofster, as I'm calling him right now. And it's hard, guys. I get, this is what parents feel like when their kids go to college or whatever, like little homies downstairs waiting for dad to get done with his podcast. So we're going to cut this one short. Have a great day, everybody. No, I'm just joking. We're going to stay here for the full 45. All right. But I got to come home to an awesome dog. So it's just such a cool moment. And then before we can get into to the podcast, we do have to talk about this. The Locker Room hit 1.1 million views on TikTok. Now, there was a ton of you that did a lot of legwork sharing that video and talking about it and commenting on it. And I just wanted to come on here and not gloat. I mean, 1.1 million views. I mean, I'm just saying. Just a million views. I'm not gloating, though. In all seriousness, though, thank you. Thank you guys who shared it. Thank you guys, and gals, of course. But thank you to everybody who who took part in helping that video blow up. We went from having 200,000 in one day, which I already thought was mind-blowing and jaw-dropping, to literally climbing over the next 3 days. And we were able to hit 1.1 million. And it's crazy. It's crazy when something that you put out in the world gets, 10 listens or 1 listen. It's crazy that I have people that listen to the show. So thank you guys for giving us 1.1 million. There's a funny story behind that, which we will have on our Take 5 this week. The second ever Take 5. For those of you who wrote me last week, thank you for that as well. I mean, it seems that the Take 5s are getting a lot of love and care, which is awesome to see, considering when you put out new content, you don't really know how things are going to go. There's a lot of times where you're just like, oh, this could go really good, or this could suck really bad and get like a view. So it was really cool to see the awesome response with Take 5. So we have another one of those dropping this week on Thursday. Another Take 5, of course. Another TikTok dropping this week. We're going to try and double it, guys. Like, can we get 2 million views? Who knows? We'll see. But we've got to talk about sports now. It's done ranting about Jacob. It's done ranting about 1.1 million views. You know what I'm saying? It's done ranting about my adorable 8-week-old puppy that I have no name for as of yet. But you will see him on all my social media. So if you follow The Locker Room, I mean, there's already a picture of him up now. But this podcast isn't about that. It's about sports. So pictures and videos of Tim Tebow have now come out this week in Tim Tebow's first week of OTAs. First off, Tim Tebow looks like a Spartan from the movie 300. Tim Tebow looks like if the Hulk was painted white in the 1960s version of Lou Ferrigno's Hulk. Like, Tim Tebow is insanely massive. Like, the pictures of him catching a football, like, here's the deal. If I'm a defensive player, like, Tim Tebow is not going to be an easy, get around. He's also not somebody I want crack blocking or someone blocking me, to be honest. Now, of course, we have never seen it, and we're going to talk about all that in just a second. But Tim Tebow looks the part. Tim Tebow looks like an NFL tight end. And I think that that's a very important part to this whole, is Tim Tebow going to be successful at all in the NFL? Now, I'm not saying that Tim Tebow is going to be a 10-touchdown tight end. I'm not saying he's going to be a starting tight end. I'm not even saying he's going to make the team. But there's a lot of controversy out there about Tim Tebow being able to have a chance on the NFL and blah, 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 blah. What I think is important is the fact that Tim Tebow showed up not only in shape to OTAs. Tim Tebow showed up looking like an in-shape tight end, not an in-shape quarterback, not an in-shape halfback. There's a very important distinction there. So already, if you didn't like Tebow before, you should like him now for the simple fact that he showed up ready to go. Tim Tebow is one of the most likable human beings on planet Earth, so he's going to be a likable person in the locker room, and he's one of the greatest sports leaders we have ever seen, especially at the college level. He has one of the most inspiring speeches that will be played literally for generations to come. But Tim Tebow showed up looking like an NFL tight end. Tim Tebow showed up saying, hey, I'm going to work for it. This isn't just going to be handed over. And I think that's important as well. Because I feel like there's going to be a lot of guys that come out of the woodwork saying, hey, I would be a good defensive end. I'd be a good nose tackle. I'm going to try and change positions from an offensive lineman to a nose tackle, or from a linebacker to a D-end, or whatever it is. Well, the important thing is that Tim Tebow's not going to be given this opportunity without having to work for it. And I like the fact that Tim Tebow has showed up in shape. Now, from the videos we have seen, and I know they're just videos, it's just OTAs, there's not defensive ends rushing in, but Tim Tebow looks like he's catching footballs. And not only is he catching them, he's not dropping them. I think they said he had like 2 touchdowns in practice, had 8 targets, caught all 8 of them. And I think that's important, the fact that that's happening now. Now, I'm not saying that that's automatically success. We've seen a lot of players that were great in practice. Hell, those of you who are athletes out there, I know I'm part of that conversation. There were some players that were the greatest practice players you've ever seen. You get them into a game, they're not very good. And those are always the people that you can't stand because they have so much talent, but sometimes when they get under the lights, it doesn't come out. I don't think Tim Tebow's that kind of guy. So I like the fact that he showed up in shape. I like the fact that Tim Tebow is being successful in practice. If Tim Tebow, you should be good in practice. Let's be fair. Tim Tebow needed to be good immediately. I'm not saying immediately, but he needed to be good immediately, right? Tim Tebow couldn't have a bunch of practices where he's dropping 10 and 15 balls, or when he's dropping 4 and 5 wide open touchdowns, or he can't run a decent route. He needed to have success early, so that way people who are doubting him or say that it's ridiculous, it's giving more and more validity to Tim Tebow being able to play the position. So I love the fact that he showed up in shape. I love the fact that he's being successful in practice because he needs to be. But here's the intangible that I think might make the difference in Tim Tebow being successful in this return and not being successful. The biggest reason is that Tim Tebow's intangible is his leadership, and I think that is going to be the biggest factor in Tim Tebow being successful as a tight end in the NFL. I'm not saying, I would never say this, I'm not saying that anybody can just, at 34 or 35 years old, however old he is, change NFL positions and come back after not playing for 6 years and be successful. But if there ever is going to be a guy that can do it, it is going to be Tim Tebow. And his intangibles in the leadership category trickle down into his other attributes. The reason he's such a hard worker, the reason he showed up in shape, the reason he showed up to work, the reason he's practicing hard, the reason he's being successful in practice is because he's a leader first and foremost. He knows that everybody is going to scrutinize and look at him under a microscope. So he has to make sure that as a leader, he leaves no stone unturned. If he showed up to OTAs out of shape, didn't look too muscular, didn't put on weight, was just lazy, this would be a laughing stock. But Tim Tebow has a real shot at being successful in the NFL, and it starts with his intangible being his leadership. There's never been a leader in college like Tim Tebow, and I would argue anybody that says Tim Tebow is not the greatest college leader ever, because Tim Tebow arguably is one of the greatest college quarterbacks ever, if not in the top 3. It depends how your list goes. I'm not going to reveal my list today because I don't want to get into the DM battles after this podcast drops. But his intangible of being a leader, I think, is going to drive him to be successful. Now, here's what success means for me. I think Tim Tebow will be on the team. I think Tim Tebow will play for the Jacksonville Jaguars. When I say play, I mean I think he is going to take snaps in the NFL. In fact, I think Tim Tebow either scores or throws more than one touchdown this year. And I'm going to give you my prediction at the end of this Tebow segment. But Tim Tebow is going to be successful in the NFL. The big question is can Tim Tebow block consistently? Because I think he's going to be called on to do that more often than not. Can he run a decent enough route? And I think both of those are the two biggest things that he's going to have. He can catch the football. We know he's a leader. We know his work ethic is going to be there. So can he block consistently? And can he run a decent route? Those are probably the two question marks that everybody's going to have. And if he can do those two things, he might take over the starting position at tight end for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm being 100% serious here, folks. If he can block successfully, and hear those keywords, successfully. Not can he block successfully? And can he run a decent enough route to get open? Because that's all most tight ends need to do is run just a decent enough open route, or route to get open, I think those are the two biggest factors. Because we know he can catch the football. He wasn't always a quarterback growing up. We know he has great hand-eye coordination. Is the footwork there? Is the strength there to block? Is the smarts there to block? Those are the two big factors. I believe they are, and here's my prediction. Tim Tebow will have 6 touchdowns, 430 yards, and 2 of those touchdowns will be a thrown football from Tim Tebow. Yes, I believe he will be a thrower of the football, not just a catcher at the tight end position. I don't know if it's going to be in the form of a Tebow jump pass. I don't know if it's going to be in the form of Wildcat, which is probably very likely. But Tim Tebow is going to be successful in the NFL. So Jake Paul is finally back in the media. Jake Paul has finally gotten back to us about who he will be fighting next. And folks, I'm here to tell you, when Jake Paul signed with Showtime, I knew we were never going to see Jake Paul versus Ben Askren again. I knew we were never going to see Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson again. I knew it wasn't Jake versus some other no-name or some other washed-up old celebrity. Showtime simply said, Jake, if you're going to be a part of us, if you're going to sign with us, you're going to start fighting real fighters. Now, he's not boxing a real boxer, but he's going to box a real fighter. A world champion fighter who was dominant for several years. A guy who literally was in a UFC fight 5 months ago. A real athlete. So I'm giving you my early predictions because it ain't going to change. And I'm going to give you the whole backstory about how this whole thing came together. And we're going to get into Jake Paul here. Now, you all know I'm not a Jake Paul fan. You all know I actually quite literally hate Jake Paul with everything in me. But I am a big Tyron Woodley fan. So it was officially announced that Jake Paul would be fighting Tyron Woodley sometime in August. It looks like it's between they have August 25th down. They have August 7th down. I know that dates have been circulating out there, but we have no real official date as of when I'm recording this podcast, which is 5:30 Eastern. So as of now, we have no official time. So Jake finally messed up. So Jake Paul's last fight against Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley was there. Tyron Woodley is very good friends with Ben Askren. So Tyron Woodley was there. He was in his corner. He kind of helped Ben Askren train a little bit, but Tyron Woodley had some fights of his own going on, so he was a very busy man himself. But Tyron Woodley shows up to the fight. He's Ben's corner man, and he goes into the opposing locker room, which is this is a very common practice for boxing matches. And he says, "Hey, can I see the gloves? I want to check out your gloves." A lot of the times, other opposing coaches do this. It's not necessarily. I don't know if it's an intimidation thing. I don't know if it's they're actually checking to see if they're going to cheat thing. But opposing coaches have the complete full right to go into the other fighter's locker room and ask to see the gloves that they're going to be boxing in that night. So that's all Tyron Woodley was doing. Tyron Woodley is a striker. He's very good at boxing. Now, of course, he's very skilled in MMA, but he's a very good striker, a very good puncher. He knows what boxing's all about. So he calmly goes over to Jake Paul's locker room and just says, "Hey, man, can I check the gloves?" To which the douchebag just starts trolling him instantly. "You think I'm going to cheat? What, you think I'm putting nickels in my gloves? What do you think I'm doing?" And then Jake Paul's crew decides that they're going to start running their mouths. "Oh, you bum, get out of here. What you checking the gloves for?" Well, if you know anything about Tyron Woodley, it's that Tyron Woodley doesn't mess around, right? Tyron Woodley's just like, "Listen, you're not going to punk me this way. I ain't nobody's mush." You know what I'm saying? Tyron Woodley ain't going to be nobody's mush. So Tyron Woodley decides, listen, he comes out on Instagram the next day and decides that he wants to fight Jake Paul. And that's all it was at the time. Just pure smoke. It was all just, Jake Paul was telling him he wasn't going to give him the chance. Jake Paul was saying that he was going to fight some other stupid-ass YouTubers. He was going to fight some other washed-up guys. And, because that's how Jake Paul is. Well, Jake Paul signs with Showtime. And Showtime does the best thing ever, which is they go back to the conflict that went viral the night of his horrible, horrible, horrible Triller fight. And next thing you know, Jake Paul's fighting Tyron Woodley. We get the matchup that a lot of people talked about on the internet for 5 days after their scuffle, after their trash talking, after he was trolling a former champion of the UFC, a guy who can hit. Let's put it that way. He's trolling this guy, no respect for him. So Showtime does a great job of finally putting together a good narrative. Ben Askren and Jake Paul made no sense. Ben Askren was just coming off a hip surgery. He was fat. He was out of shape. Didn't look like he wanted to be there. He was laughing afterwards. He collected a giant check to do nothing. Nate Robinson worked really hard, but listen, Nate Robinson's not a fighter. And he's also 4'3". Tyron Woodley's a real fighter. If Jake Paul knocks out Tyron Woodley, let's put it this way, Jake Paul's a real fighter. If Jake Paul damages Tyron Woodley bad, Jake Paul's a real fighter. If Jake Paul survives, now, once again, I'm not saying that they're all rigged. But what I am saying is that, we have seen things get very interesting. We have seen some situations that are very weird. I don't think this fight's going to be rigged, though. Tyron Woodley, if he has any decency, Tyron Woodley really doesn't need the money. And if Dana White wants to entice this a little bit more, because Tyron Woodley was very good for the company for a lot of years, Dana White would say, hey, listen, just so I know this fight isn't rigged because we don't know what's real and what's not real, I'll give you an extra $4 million. I'll give you an extra $3 million if you win this fight. Dana White should do that. He should say, listen, you win this fight, I'm going to give you an extra $1 million. I'm going to give you $2 million from the UFC for knocking out this punk that everybody hates. Knocking out this kid that has disrespected the MMA community for the last year and a half. So Showtime does a great job. They put a fight together that people were clamoring to see. People were talking about right after the Ben Askren fight. Nobody really cared about Ben Askren being knocked out because he was fat and out of shape. Everybody simply said, who's next? Let's go get Dylan Dennis. Let's go get an undefeated fighter, right? Let's go get Tyron Woodley. We saw the beef that they had. Like, let's have Tyron Woodley and Jake Paul fight. And we finally get this fight. A fight that I did not think was ever going to happen. And listen, I have a lot of respect for Jake Paul. The fact that Jake Paul is signing up to actually fight real fighters is an accomplishment in and of itself. Because he hadn't fought real fighters yet. Ben Askren was a wrestler. Nate Paul was a basketball player. Nate Paul. Oh my goodness, guys. Listen, have a little bit of a cold. Took some Dayquil, some NyQuil. Mixed together, not mixed together. But I took some NyQuil because I'm fixing to go to sleep right after this podcast post. So if I'm a little drowsy, it's not that I'm doing drugs or that I'm drunk. It's that NyQuil, I'm affected very heavily. You give me an aspirin, it's the same thing as me taking hydrocodone. My body reacts very strongly to any kind of drug, all right? So I apologize for me stumbling over my words. But Nate Robinson was a basketball player. The other dude he fought was a YouTuber. Like, Jake Paul is now having to fight a real guy with real strength, with real ability, in a real fight. Now, Tyron Woodley, like I said, please don't sell your soul to the money train. Don't try and get knocked out by Jake Paul just so you can claim an extra $2 million. If I'm Dana White, to secure this fight and to understand that Tyron Woodley's being for real, like I said, I would offer that man an extra $2 million if he wins the fight. Now let's get to the details of this fight. So, Jake Paul will have the size advantage. Tyron Woodley only stands at 5'9". I think they have Jake Paul around 6'2", 6'2.5", closer to 6'3". Now, if we're talking about strength, figure, like if you're just looking at the fighter, Tyron Woodley looks like the much better fighter. He's the much bigger bigger in the sense that he's much more muscular, and we all know that muscles don't win fights. Trust me, we have seen Brock Lesnar, we have seen freaks of nature with muscles popping out to their eyeballs get knocked out and get, absolutely demolished. But when it comes to physique, Tyron Woodley, of course, is in very good shape. He just had a fight not too long ago and did very, very well until he got caught in the wrong spot, which I felt very bad for him because Tyron Woodley really wanted that victory. But Tyron Woodley's an in-shape dude. He's physically a much more stronger, dominant presence than Jake Paul. Now let's go to the striking. We've never really seen, we've seen Jake Paul knock out Ben Askren and Nate Robinson. But at the end of the day, like, the punch that Ben Askren took, he was able to get up from within a second and wanted to continue, and I thought the ref called that fight off way too early. But it was a horrible Triller event, and Triller stands for trash. So when it comes to striking, Tyron Woodley, as far as we know, is the much better striker. Honestly, we have not seen enough of Jake Paul against real competition to see that he's a great striker. I think his motions look good. I think he makes good, solid contact. We've seen him knock out a bunch of washed-up has-beens or have-never-beens because they've never fought because they're basketball players or YouTubers. So I'm interested to see how he faces against a real UFC guy. A real guy that can stand there in the ring and punch back and forth. A real guy that can take massive amounts of punches and is not going to get knocked down. A real guy that's going to put pressure on Jake Paul. A real guy that is going to come with haymakers. Listen, Tyron Woodley by no means is the world's best boxer. Tyron Woodley by no means is a very, very, very good boxer. But he's a good boxer. He's a good striker. This is going to be the first test of Jake Paul's career. And this, to be honest, and I know this might sound weird, this might be a legacy test for Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley has lost a lot of his last several fights. I mean, he's been a champion multiple times. But Tyron Woodley is one of those went to the very top of the mountain and just continually tumbled down, and loss after loss after loss has built up. I think a total of 19-7, which I know doesn't sound horrible, but when it racks up towards the end of your career, when you have multiple losses in a row, it starts looking bad on you. And I'm not saying this is going to affect his legacy when it comes to MMA, but this is is Tyron Woodley one of the better fighters we have seen? Or is Tyron Woodley just somebody who had a very good moment in the MMA community and in the UFC and then hit rock bottom? Is he done for? This isn't going to determine if he's a great fighter, but this is going to determine how the people are going to perceive Tyron Woodley for the very near future. Because a lot of us, not me, but a lot of us who are just now new to the UFC, you've only seen Tyron Woodley lose. You've only seen Tyron Woodley struggle. So I think that's going to be very important for Tyron Woodley to prove, hey, listen, I'm that dude still. And I've been fighting top 10 guys in the UFC. And listen, I might not be a top 10 fighter anymore, but I can fight. I'm in shape. I can still throw hands. So I think it's very important. It's important for both guys, but I think it's very important for Tyron Woodley when it comes to the pride factor, when it comes to how people are going to perceive him. So height goes to Jake Paul. Reach, I'm most likely going to think is going to go to Jake Paul. But Tyron Woodley, when it comes to striking, I think Tyron Woodley has the striking. I think Tyron Woodley, has the fight smarts, has the experience. I respect Jake Paul. I respect the fact that Jake Paul took this fight. I respect the fact that Tyron Woodley seems like he's this isn't Ben Askren. This isn't anything else. This looks like a motivated Tyron Woodley. And I hope that he's not motivated by just the paycheck. I hope that, like I said, I think Dana White needs some sort of incentive. But if we're getting an honest fight, if we're getting a motivated Tyron Woodley, if we're getting a Tyron Woodley that has said on his Instagram and on his Twitter all day, listen, I'm here to stand up for the MMA community, I think Jake Paul's in a lot of trouble. I think this is going to be the first fight that Jake Paul is going to stand there and go, wow, the person across from me is a physical specimen. The person across from me is a good fighter. Not only a good fighter, but at one point was a great fighter. The person across from me knows how to throw a punch. I'm interested to see how Jake Paul responds when he's in there with a real fighter. I can tell you, I'm predicting it now. I'm going to tell you how I think this fight's going to go. Jake Paul came out and said that he's going to knock him out in the second round and he's about to be knocked out by a YouTuber and blah, 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 all that bullcrap. Jake Paul is not knocking out Tyron Woodley. If this is an honest fight. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's a lot of craziness that goes along. There's a lot of shadiness that goes along when it comes with these celebrity boxing matches. But if this is an honest fight, Tyron Woodley knocks him out in the first round. I'm predicting it now. I'm just saying. There is no way Jake Paul is going to survive a barrage of punches thrown by Tyron Woodley. If Tyron Woodley is serious, if he takes this serious, if this fight is serious, if this fight isn't rigged, if everything is to the T, if this is fighter v. fighter, Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley, I have Tyron Woodley smothering Jake Paul in the first few minutes. Jake Paul might survive the round. He might. But this thing is not going past 2 rounds. No way. Motivated Tyron Woodley will knock his dumb ass out. And Jake Paul, the douchebag, will finally get what he deserves. He's been smack talking these MMA guys. He won't go fight them in the octagon. I get that. Whatever. You're a pussy. We all got it. Oh, I shouldn't say that. Excuse me, guys. You're a baby. We got it. You're not going to go do it. But you have disrespected everyone in the MMA community. You have disrespected Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, some of the greatest strikers that we have in the game today. You said that you think that they're a joke, that their punches are a joke. Well, great. You now get to face a guy now while he's still older, while he has been out of the UFC, he's no longer a part of the UFC. You're not fighting a current guy. He is a respectable fighter. And if Jake Paul were to beat Tyron Woodley, if Jake Paul were to knock Tyron Woodley out, and I know for a fact that this is a legitimate fight, I 100% would give Jake Paul the credit that he deserves. And I would say at that point that Jake Paul's a fighter. But I don't see it. Tyron Woodley, knockout in one round, if not early in the second. Tyron Woodley is going to put him down. And I can't wait, and I'm going to quote his tweet here, for him to take out the trash and get the MMA's community's respect back from this YouTube Disney douchebag. Okay, so last subject of the day. My voice is finally starting to go out here, so bear with me. But last subject of the day, the NBA playoffs. Now, listen, Linda. That's never going to get old. Sorry, I'm going to forever repeat that Vine. For those of you who don't know what Vine is, go to Locker Room on TikTok, the Locker Room 22, because it's like Vine, except cooler. And I'm on there, all right? Anyways, I never said that the Dallas Mavericks were going to sweep the Clippers. Now, I've talked a lot of smack here. Don't get me wrong. My first take 5 was all about how Luka was absolutely destroying the Clippers, which, to my props, he was. I was being very sincere when I was saying all that. It was very true. Then Luka, of course, apparently strained his neck, and one thing led to another. Next thing you know, we're in this kind of mess. Tied 2-2. I still believe the Dallas Mavericks pull out this series. I believe that tomorrow night you will see a reinvigorated Dallas Mavericks team. You will see a Luka Doncic that apparently reports say today is very healthy. And I believe that we are going to see a Dallas Mavericks winning in 7 games. And here's a couple reasons why I tell you this. The Dallas Mavericks shot like 5 of 30 from three-point land. That's never going to happen again. Right? Statistically, it's almost impossible for that to happen again. They broke the record for most offensive efficiency last year. They're a very good shooting team. They had an off night. When Max Kleber, when Penny Hardaway Jr., when you have guys like that literally all combine for 12 points for the entire night, you're never going to be able to win that ball game. So that in and of itself, they're going to shoot better. We know that. We know that Luka Doncic, or from what we are being told, Luka Doncic is healthy. If Luka Doncic is healthy, he's the best player in the series, and there's no one on the Clippers that can guard him no matter how many bodies they throw at him. So if that's the case, now he's demanding the double team again. Now he's going to be able to find his wide open shooters. But the biggest reason of all isn't necessarily what's on the Mavericks side of the basketball. The Mavericks are a young team. They're going to be up and down. I figured this series, quite honestly, would go 6. I think I put 5 in my bracket, but I figured it'd probably go 6 or 7, which is right along the lines of what's going to happen. I believe that Dallas goes into Los Angeles tomorrow. They win that ball game by a substantial margin, and then Game 6 is up for grabs. Who knows at that point? The biggest problem I have with the Los Angeles Clippers is we have never seen them close the deal. Too often we keep hearing that we're supposed to respect the Clippers. Too often we keep hearing the Clippers this, the Clippers that. They should be the favorite this. They should be the favorite that. Here's the deal. The Los Angeles Clippers blew a 3-1 lead last year to Denver with 26-point leads, 19-point leads, and 16-point leads in the last few games. So we have never seen these past 2 games that the Clippers won. It was not a moment of, hey, it's the final minutes. They need to buckle down and get a bucket and score here. It was they're blowing the Mavericks off the floor so they can do whatever they want and they can play freely. They can also pray freely. But we have never seen the Clippers win a battled game. We have never seen the Clippers win a game when it's 92-92 with a minute and a half left. The Clippers shine. They don't. The Clippers fall apart in tight moments and tight situations. So I have the Dallas Mavericks winning this in 7. And for the simple reason that I just don't believe. Now, Kawhi Leonard's been phenomenal. Paul George has been very good. But we have never seen the rest of the team and or those 2 players in and of themselves live up to the moments that matter. It's great to be up 3-1 like they were last year against Denver. but you can't close the deal. It's great to be tied 2-2 with the Dallas Mavericks, but you have to close the deal. I'm tired of everybody crowning them champions and one of the best teams in the NBA when they struggle to close ball games. Statistically, the worst team in the entire NBA that's in the playoffs right now at closing ball games with 5 minutes to go. If Dallas stays healthy, which we hope they do because everybody just wants to see healthy basketball series, which we're going to talk about that with the Lakers in just a moment. Everybody wants to see the best of the best, healthy players going one-on-one, going at it, right? So I'm not panicking here. I'm not going to hit the panic button. I think the Dallas Mavericks get it done. I think they win tomorrow, and I think that puts too much pressure on the Los Angeles Clippers. Right now, if they play free, if they have a 30-point lead, see ya. They're the best front runners in the NBA. But I truly believe that the Dallas Mavericks and Luka Doncic get back on track for the simple fact that we have never seen the Clippers close a ball game. Now to the other series that's dealing with a ton of injuries, the Los Angeles Lakers versus the Suns. I'm not going to hit the panic button. Why? Because they have LeBron James. Am I going to hit the annoyed button? Absolutely. The Lakers did this exact same thing last year where they pissed everybody off in the first round because they're the worst three-point shooting team in the first round, and then, of course, we know what happened the rest of the way through. KCP, LeBron James, Alex Caruso, all these guys started shooting the lights out, and of course, they won the championship. So we know that the shooting's going to get better. Why? Because statistically it bears that out, and we saw this exact same thing almost play out in the first round last year, which was horrible shooting, horrible shooting, horrible shooting, horrible shooting. Oh, conference finals, great shooting. Oh, championship, great shooting. So I don't expect them to shoot this poorly. I don't expect Kyle Kuzma and KCP and Alex Caruso and Taylor Horton-Tucker and all these other guys. I don't expect all these guys to play as bad as they have been, right? They're going to shoot the ball better. We all know that. The big difference is from last year's first round to this year's first round is Anthony Davis being hurt yet again. While Anthony Davis is the most fickle physical superstar, Kevin Durant's the most fickle mental superstar right next to Kyrie Irving. If AD, though, could just stay healthy, there's always a knick-knack. Oh, he hurt his finger. Oh, he stubbed his toe. Oh, his neck. Oh, his thigh. Oh, he pulled his groin. Anthony Davis, while he was amazing last year in the bubble, has to grow up. Listen, when you're in high school and you stub your toe and you need to come sit out, or when you're in high school and someone gave you a stinger on the elbow or whatever, I get it. Sit out. When you're in college and you got a stinger and you have 60 games for the year, I get it. If this is the regular season, I got it. But Anthony Davis is not playing through a lot of his ticky-tack injuries, and he's playing weak when he is playing. He's had 2 good games this series, but he's still playing weak. My wife's a sports psychologist, so we talk about this kind of stuff all the time. If you approach something weak, if you approach something timid, most likely your body is going to approach it timid as well. Why do you think when guys sprain an ankle, why do you think when guys tear an ACL, that they're more likely to do the exact same thing? Because they enter that next workout, that next game, whatever it is, with caution. And the second you play with caution, you don't trust your ankles, you don't trust your knee, is the second that those same injuries are going to happen. Why? Because your brain is not telling your legs, you're strong, you're perfectly fine. Your brain's saying, hey, listen, I don't know if we can do this, and next thing you know, you tear your ACL again, or even on the other leg, or you re-hurt your ankle, or whatever it might be. Anthony Davis has got to grow up, get some confidence and understand, listen, I'm healthy, I'm good, boom, I've got to play that way. Stop playing timid. Stop taking 30-foot three-pointers. Stop taking fadeaway jump shots. I know you can make that, but you're not KD. You're not shooting 47%. So, Anthony Davis, he's down. And I've told you, the Los Angeles Lakers will repeat if they have a healthy team. But I can't trust Anthony Davis right now. Hell, I've not even seen LeBron James go for long spurts yet. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has been in and out. And he played god-awful in his last couple of games. But a healthy Lakers team will win the championship. The question is what constitutes healthy? We can't have a banged-up Anthony Davis or an Anthony Davis who stubs his finger or stubs his toe and then decides that he has to sit out because he just can't push forward anymore. We need an Anthony Davis that's going to grow up, shave his damn unibrow, and play men's basketball. This isn't college. This isn't high school. A healthy Lakers will win the championship, but a healthy LeBron is going to win this series. For those of you who decide that you're going to write off LeBron, for those of you who are saying this is almost an impossible task, I hope you keep that same energy. I hope you keep that same attitude when the Lakers pull this series out off of LeBron James's back. What is the narrative when LeBron James win this series? Because right now he's being told that they're done for. There's nothing LeBron can do. If I could speak, damn it. Not even LeBron could drag this team out of the depths. So if that's the case, this is going to be a crowning achievement in his legacy belt if he wins this series, right? Or is the same thing going to happen that always happens, which is, it's the first round. He's never lost in the first round. He should have beat the Suns. They were the better team. You can't say that right now. The Suns are the better team. You can't say that LeBron has the healthier team. You can't say because half of his players are out with ticky-tack injuries. You can't say LeBron would be doing this with Anthony Davis, because if LeBron wins this series, which he will, LeBron James will be doing it simply off of the greatness of LeBron James. So I have the Lakers taking this in 6. I think the Lakers win tonight. And I think LeBron James gets back on track. He has to carry this team to a quick victory here. And here's the deal. I think this is the hardest series for him, unless somehow the Clippers were able to pull it out against the Mavericks and they'd meet them in the Western Conference Final. This is going to be the hardest matchup for the Lakers. AD needs to grow up, but LeBron James will carry this team to a victory. Well, there you have it. Another episode of The Locker Room is in the books. Please join us on our social media. Thank you to everybody for 1.1 million views on TikTok. Speechless to this day. Listen, follow us on our social media. We love to interact with you. We love to hear from you, the fan. Locker Room faithful, once again, I'm Jacob Courtwright. This is The Locker Room.